Hey.
Okay, we are here. I can never tell when it's about to start, Kristen, if I'm being honest. Like, I wish the thing had like a little like, hey, 3 seconds until it goes live. Like that, maybe we give them that feedback. Cause I always feel like I'm about to say something and I just have to like be loud immediately because I'm anxious about dead space at the beginning.
Well, yeah, because we dread the millennial pause.
Yeah,
And you
no,
have
yeah, that's a
struck
fact.
the fear of that into me. So
That's a bit. Oh,
I will
look,
play the intro music though.
look who's back. We got old Farcock here. Gwen, thanks for dropping in.
Oh, Farkak, long time no see.
James, thanks
So
for coming in.
hey, James, Abeg, who's been here for a while. Thank you so much for joining us.
Okay, a little Celsius report today, Kristen.
Oh yeah.
This I
Good
got a
morning.
new flavor. It's called Oasis Vibe, which
Mhm.
is fun. I like them naming things vibes because that is kind of how I think about taste profiles sometimes. Um, it's okay. It's like prickly pear, lime stuff. Like I think it's okay. It reminds me a little bit of my time in El Paso, Texas.
I'm guessing oasis here means like a desert oasis, right? That's why they're going for the prickly pear theme.
Are there other kinds of oases?
There was the band.
That's true. I can't imagine a flavored Oasis. What's that guy's name? Neil something?
Like Liam
Yeah,
and is it Joel? I feel like
I
they
don't
were
know.
featured
Noel
on
Gallagher.
SNL.
Noel
Like,
Gallagher?
yeah,
Is it
yeah, yeah, I
Noel
think so.
Gallagher? I've been getting TikToks for them because I guess they think that like, oh yeah, your online profile probably matches someone who'd be a big fan of like 90s Oasis type rock.
Mhm.
Not a fan. The guy seems like a huge douchebag. I don't know. Never met the guy. But anyway, I wouldn't want to taste his sweat in a bottle.
Oh, okay, all right. Yeah, and we have a few more folks joining us here: Mikado, Fokwan,
Kaido.
Kaido, Jacob,
Woo!
James.
Let's go.
Yes, we will
Thank
be
y'all for
talking
dropping
about our
in.
sponsor in the middle of the show.
Yeah, not Celsius yet. If anyone has the hookup, send them some clips. I will drink a Celsius on every single one of these episodes for the next year if we get a Celsius sponsor in the next month.
Mhm.
Putting in throwing the glove down.
Yeah.
All right, let me get
While
this
while
up.
while Cameron pulls up the bangers, let us know like what have you been playing lately in terms of games?
Beep boop.
Um
I've been playing stuff.
oh, you have?
Yeah, I've been playing the
Oh.
new Zelda game. I'm
Oh.
I'm such a sucker for everything Nintendo.
Mhm.
Like there's just something so magical about the IP universes that the like Nintendo engineers and designers have put together, and Mario, Zelda, like all of those just hit so hard for me.
Mhm.
The new game's really fun. It's
Which one's
I
this
just
one?
it is Echoes of the Past. It's
Oh, it is a new
notably
one.
Yeah, so notably, I think it's the first Zelda game where you're actually just Zelda. You're not playing Link in Legend of Zelda. And
Oh, that's
so
nice. Some
yeah,
representation.
yeah. And so I've been really enjoying it. I think the mechanics are basically the novel part. It's like the old not it's like the old side scroller ones where you have this big like flat map and you just kind of like go around. I'm Link to the Past is the style of the game, but the mechanics of it are really fun. Where Zelda's power is to basically create something that exists in the world already. So you can create like rocks or beds or enemy creatures like monsters. And so instead of like it being a direct slasher kind of Zelda
Mhm.
game, it's a Legend of Zelda game. It's you can kind of make these little minions to do your stuff for you. And each of them act as like a weapon in their own right. And so it's like a fun little exploratory game that encourages playing with different combinations of things, which maybe we talk more about it today.
Oh, that does sound really fun. Is it on the Switch?
It's on the Switch.
Okay.
Um, yeah,
Maybe I'll get one. Oh, I see
I
the folks are mentioning Nintendo 360. I don't know what that is.
that that's a yeah. I was about to say Nintendo 64 sounds real. Nintendo 360 sounds like a failed talk show about video games.
Oh, okay, okay. Yeah.
Anyway, here is our first banger. It's a 4 panel for our audio listeners. It's the clown meme where the guy is putting on more clown makeup over time. First clown, I'm only doing this job until I have enough saved up to do what I really want. I've thought that before. Second one, I'm waiting for my next bonus so I can finally pursue my passion. Third clown, if I stay for another year, I'll get a promotion, which will give me the opportunity I really want. Fourth clown, full clown mode this time. I'm grinding it out since I've already put in so much time and it would be hard to start over.
Ugh, too real.
Nightmare, right? Is this you and me right now?
Well, at least we don't have full-time corporate jobs where this might have
Yeah.
been even more real. What do you think is our variation based on what we do?
So like we were encouraging a bunch of stuff about you got to keep trying and put in the time to make stuff happen, right? Like you can't expect the new thing you're trying to do, which you might be really bad at the start. You can't expect that to just work very quickly because nothing works very quickly. The flip side is continuing to work at something that isn't bringing you joy or success much longer than you should. So I think our version of this isn't with OK Banger. I think that's still super early. For me, it's sticking with a startup idea or concept longer than like past the point of me getting conviction that, hey, I don't think that this is it. I think maybe for you it has something to do with some of the consulting stuff you're doing, or maybe trying to lean hard into some of the previous career stuff that you're like, hey, I know that I have the qualifications for this, but I don't love it. What do you think?
Well, I that's so funny because the fact that you stick with stuff is the quality I admire, whereas I tend to like waver at an idea at the moment it like slightly falls apart. So it's so interesting that you bring it up as like, you know, your downside right now, a clown meme right now. I think like for me, like it is about like the duration with which I stick with the consulting stuff. I think it's like it's very hard to explain without giving away too much of what I actually do. But then it is like, yeah, like I did this before, therefore I will try to match my consulting to be exactly like this thing that I did.
Yeah.
But then without realizing that, wait, that's why I'm consulting, is because I didn't like doing that the specific thing that I did. Like, well, so I think it's really easy to slip into these modes.
Yeah.
Of default mode, I guess.
It's the path of least resistance.
Right, which actually creates a lot of resistance. I think that's the whole irony.
Can you say more about that?
Like, I think it's the path of, like, the brain thinks it's the path of resistance, but then the body will generate every possible thing to make sure that it becomes, you know, something that's really impossible to achieve, because I in the subconsciously would hate it. And then I will end up in this turmoil of like, oh, I want to do this thing, but then actually I don't.
Okay, so saying that back to you, you tend to convince yourself that the thing that you're doing and your body is giving you signals to not do, you like intellectualize it into like you rationalize it into being why it's the right thing to do. Yeah, no, I hear that. It sucks. And a lot of my friends, actually, who I'll say friends, a lot of the people that I know from business school think about their entire career like this, and we're like, you know, 5 years post school, and they're now just being like, they're now just taking the first steps to do something that they actually want to do, and guess what? They have to start over. And so like the, you know, all of the accrued value of doing like a ritzy job here for their resume or whatever, like it means nothing when they start doing the thing that they're actually passionate about. And so they're a beginner all over again. There's nothing wrong with that, but it's important to know that like transferable skills rarely transfer in the way that you want.
Yeah, that's the most misleading thing in the world.
It's a psyop by big transferable to keep you sad. All right. So this is from Adrian. Communicate 3 times more than you think you need to, and you're a third of the way there.
Oh,
do you believe
that's
that?
That's a subcast.
Is it us?
Huh?
Oh, wait, what'd you say?
Oh, it's a subcast to something else that's happening on the platform. I believe, but I will not.
Oh, wait, what's the T?
Huh?
Sam, hello. What's the T?
Well, I just check what Adrian's partner in crime has been posting, and then like draw some correlation. So I
Oh,
definitely
okay.
not mention it on the show.
Got it.
Yeah. So
DM us. Reply with what you think is happening.
mhm.
Sorry, keep going.
Yeah. So I can see that you replied. Instructions unclear. Multiplied by 369. Now my username keeps saying, "Damn, she's fine." Oh,
That
what is
wasn't a
that?
good
What is
joke.
that?
It wasn't it's not my
You
best work. I was
you
just
gotta move into a CONDO. What is that? What is that band? I should know. It's actually sort of like sort of Asian,
90s kids now.
huh?
90s kids now. No, that's another bad joke. That is actually I'm gonna let like the chat answer that question. Y'all, can you help Kristen figure
I think
out
I'm thinking
where
of the sample song.
no so okay, so the philosophers say 369 damn she fine, insert the rest of the lyrics here. Uh we're not big enough to get copyright struck,
Question mark?
but in the future we might be.
Yeah.
Oh, law, good identifying our PFP similarities. That's because it's both from the same art project. Anyway, I'm on one right now. Let me rein it in, Kristen.
Mm-hmm.
Regardless, or whether or not this is related to something on the platform, I think as creators, it's really important to. Tori knows what I'm talking about.
Oh,
I think
you're
it's
right,
really
Kevlo.
to,
Failed
create
90s.
creators don't understand that like when you make the thing, you're really only like 10% of the way there. 90% of it is getting people to see it and eventually like share it. If you're
Oh,
lucky, the algorithm helps you do that. If you're not lucky, like the rest of us, you got to put in the legwork to get it in front of people. You got to talk your own shit. Tyler, the creator, has a really, really good little interview bit about this.
mm-hmm.
And he's talking about self-promotion in music. And he's basically being like, everybody that hates on you for promoting your own stuff is an idiot. Because if you don't love your music, why are you even doing this? Like,
Mm-hmm.
talk about your stuff that you love and you spent so much time working on. Like, you got to be your biggest fan. And I think to a degree that's like really true. You know, other people need to like your stuff too. But if I'm not really excited about the dumb jokes I'm making in the reply section or,
Mm-hmm.
you know, the shows they're putting out,
Mm-hmm.
it's soul crushing. I'd much rather be like super hyped about it and then come across as a little cringe.
Oh, 100%. And I think here, like the where I have misread this particular kind of statement, like or
Mhm.
like the seven times is the adage sort of thing, is that it's not okay. Yeah, and even what Gwen said, like 10
Yep.
times more. It's not saying the same thing 10 times. I think
Yeah.
like that is the nuance that a lot
Yeah.
of like creators don't realize. It's actually 7 variations, 10 variations of value prop, right? Because
Mm.
you don't actually know what resonates with the audience. So you almost have to go around the circle of like what you think they want. I mean, like the ideal is that you actually talk to them so you understand what they want. But then, like, without that, you have to do like 7 or like sort of like slight variations in order to get the message out there.
Can you communicate what a value prop is to our listeners that might not know what that means?
What is important to the other person? So I think usually like there was that annoying tweet that you showed the other day, right? Of like you should make people feel like they have status. You should make people feel like, it's what's the other ones? I already forgot.
I don't remember which one you're referring to, but like one way I've heard it described as when you're building products, it really needs to be oriented around one of the 7 deadly sins. If it doesn't help somebody, you know, have sex, feel good, feel power, you know, make money, it's probably not going to resonate with a lot of people. I think
Mm-hmm.
it's a little bit of a jaded way to think about it, but everything you put out on the internet serves a purpose for somebody, or it needs to if you want them to engage with it. And so like broadly, it's either got to be educational, it's got to be inspirational, or it's got to entertain them in some way.
Oh yeah,
And
those three.
yeah. And so like for us, I think we kind of live in this, you know, if we're patting ourselves on the back a little bit, this like infotainment space.
Mhm.
And it's important to know
That's not a
that.
pat on the back. That's descriptive.
I mean, it depends. The chat gets to decide if they're learning
Right.
anything
Whether
from
we're
this.
entertaining enough.
Furkan, I think, is asking about the reset button. I don't know what that means. So explain more about that, and then we'll try to answer that.
Yeah.
Sam,
Uh, they are though. Candles are so important.
yeah. Okay, let's keep this train rolling. All right, so this is from my buddy Jack. He was grabbing a waffle this morning, did a double take, I'm assuming he meant to say, when the other person grabbing a fork across from him turned out to be Krazam. Now, we are big Krazam fans on this show.
Yeah.
Right?
Oh, 100%. If you maybe we should post some Krazam clips because I feel like they all hold up. It's a thing. Like,
yeah, they always hit.
They have been posting skits for like years and years, and I would still rewatch the old ones when I'm feeling certain existential crisis.
The reason why we love Krazam so much is that it hits uncomfortably close to home to anybody building in like tech or tech adjacent stuff. And so so here's some Krazam classics. For developers, it's one called Microservices. If you haven't seen that, please go look at that if you do any type of thing with a computer, because you'll just be like, oh no, this is actually what it's like to be in a corporate meeting. He has another one, and this might be his biggest one, is when he's talking about being a hustle bro grinder guy. And it's basically start to finish of his day as like a Manhattanite tech bro grinder. And man, that one hits. It's you can't even describe it. It's just like this dystopian Patrick Bateman-y like tech epic, I'll say.
Right.
And then I think another one of my favorites is Did I Add Value? Like that one's super real.
Right. And then bringing up what James said about being financially stable to do what you want. I think what really like amazes me is that this Krazam person has a full-time job at Amazon.
Yeah. And I was talking to Jack yesterday, and he's just like, oh yeah, no, he's an actual developer guy that was kind of pretty awkward in real life. Like, he's phenomenal in his like content creation, and then he's also a normal engineer energy guy.
Right. So that's what I really admire. That's like people who like don't defer their dreams and are able to pull it off while also having a full-time job. Of course, like even that arrangement is so hard, right? I have no idea how you have any brain juices left after the end of the day, but then it's like inspirational. I'm like, I wish more people who have full-time jobs can do this, or like are in an environment where they can actually get away with doing it.
Sorry, I'm distracted by your use of brain juices. I was trying to come up with something funny to say about that. I'm just gonna let it linger in my brain juices.
Your juice ran out.
Yeah, I have no juice today. Did I ever really have the juice though?
I hope so. When I say brain juice, I'm imagining cerebral spinal fluid.
Just leaking out my head.
Exactly.
Have you ever seen a robot have like a catastrophic hydraulic line failure?
No, surprisingly, even though I love watching robot failure things.
Nightmare. It is so close, especially if it's like a humanoid thing. It's so close to like a person bleeding out.
Oh
gosh. Scary. Also, I want to highlight this before we roll on. Also, we got to fix our layouts here. I hate the fact that it's covering your face.
I know. I'm like always trying to be like, I'm here.
But so Tori is saying that they're in the awkward start phase of creating stuff online. And so we really appreciate that this show is helpful to you in some way, shape, or form.
Yeah, everyone follow Tori Stories on Farcaster.
Yeah, 100%.
I'm assuming that your username is very similar. So please drop your username so people know what to follow.
100p. Speaking of candles that get you laid, here's Samantha with I Feel My Soul Beginning to Intertwine with Humankind, their candle company. And I'm not sure how healthy that is. Kristen,
actually, that's terrible. I saw it, but I didn't like that, but I told him was like, oh yeah, it's starting to happen. Like I've been having that happen this whole time, guys.
Kristen, how healthy is this?
Completely not, because literally it's also sort of like, usually, like, there's this whole, like, the new happy guru person was saying, your self-worth is inherent to you and you should not place your value on someone else's opinions. So in a corporate job, it becomes like, how well you're doing your job. But as a
Yeah.
creator, it becomes like, how well is your stuff doing? And
Yeah.
then you have outsourced your soul to the algorithms and, like, other people, and that is not a healthy place to be.
I'm going to disagree a little bit here. I so so I do fundamentally agree that you don't want to get your self-worth exclusively from like external metrics that are out of your control.
Mhm.
But we always talk about like finding purpose and like doing the activities that resonate with you authentically. And I don't think that there's a version of that that doesn't involve genuinely putting something on the line with yourself.
So I understand what you mean, right? Like, a lot what we do here is soul making. When I tell you my new KPI of Cameron laughs per minute, I was like so amused by myself. It actually just made my night.
Yeah, it was pretty funny. Do you want to
um
explain what that is? Because like that's our chat. We haven't talked about that yet.
yeah. So I think I go through periods of, like, I think back of my mind, I'm subconsciously thinking about our show, even if I'm not actively thinking about it. And
Yeah,
then, like,
same.
I was starting to watch, my favorite, like, doom scrolling comedy type stuff.
Hmm.
Um, and I realized that, like, what I do is I cheer myself up with comedy. Like,
Yeah.
when I'm feeling down, and it's like so nourishing for me. And, like, that's what I want to provide for other people. But yet it's not a thing I explicitly say. And I did stand up for a little bit, but, like, I'm starting to, like, slowly incorporate that spirit back into the show, right? But I thought, like, one KPI that is completely, like, nourishing and, like, disconnected from the algorithms, hopefully, is, like, just trying to make you laugh. And, like, if I can get away with that, then I feel like, "Ah, I have accomplished something for the day."
What it I was with you up until you said accomplish something because like I'm curious, is
Oh.
it like
Like, there's a quality to the craft.
okay, so it's a micro feedback loop for you that you're like, "Hey, I'm doing the thing that I'm trying to do even if the algorithms don't get it."
Correct.
Okay. No, I buy that. The it's so interesting when like I really want like start thinking about like how do I do more of the things that I want to do? Because part of the way that I sometimes get down on myself and dog myself on my life right now is that there are no stakes. Not like meat steaks, like, if things go wrong, stuff is like mostly fine. Nobody dies. Like I used to have a job where people would die if we didn't do our job well. Or get hurt or whatever. Like even in training, the stakes were always real because when you have heavy equipment and ammunition and things like that, there's risk. And I didn't realize how much how important the like, oh, if I don't do a good job, stuff goes wrong was to my sense of self-worth until a couple
Mm.
years after the army.
Mhm.
Because like it felt like what I did mattered. And it's really hard to like as someone so like surprise surprise, I'm like a guy in like grew up in the United States. Most of like male self-worth is tied up in what you do. Like that's kind of like a societally imposed thing. It's like an inter male thing.
Me
That's
too.
it's also a capitalism like corporate, especially tech, American
Mhm.
tech type thing where like
Yeah.
nobody cares who you are. They care what you've done,
I'm
especially what
imagining
you've done
the
for the
the
right
the
thing.
handshake meme, and it's, like, just, like, white males and then, like, Asian immigrants shaking our hands.
Yes. Yeah. Like the big buff folks. The
Yeah.
yeah, and so like that's super toxic. But I
Mhm.
actually think that that's a different thing than what Sam's talking about.
Mm.
Or like maybe that's what they're referencing, but I would like to make the distinction. Because if you don't care, like actually care from the bottom of your heart about the things that you're doing, I think it's really, really hard to sustain doing that for a long time. because everything, no matter how interesting, no matter how successful you are at it, like gets boring after a while, and you need a source of energy that like isn't just, hey, I'm gonna do this because I'm tough. James, I
Mhm.
appreciate that resonated. Let me know what resonated about it, and maybe we can talk more about stuff like that. But do you get what I mean? Like, if you don't actually like put something on the line, put skin in the game, to use the tech term, like even if it's just emotional skin, you don't actually care about that thing that much.
Yeah, so I feel like that's the tricky thing, right? Is that like the soul entwining cuts both ways. And it's like
Yeah.
we want only the good part and not the yucky part.
How do we keep the good and leave the yuck?
How do we keep the good and leave the yuck?
I think it involves something called play. We'll get into that here in a second.
All right.
All right, so this is the last one. Surprise, surprise! I've been like thinking a lot about work stuff recently. So this is Kojo, founder of Ponder. Go check that out if you're on Farcaster. I just saw my brother for the first time since he stepped down from a tech company he founded 10 years ago. 25% of his life spent, $175 million raised, and now no plan. His stress is replaced by genuine laughter, but the white space must be unsettling. Now to convince him to build on Farcaster. I have so many feelings about this.
I feel like I don't know. Like there's a lot of assumptions going on. We don't know what the brother actually feels.
Yeah.
We know what Colin feels about the brother.
Yep. Like, and you know, like I like Colin, full disclosure, him and I chat fairly regularly. He likes working, right? Like in the same way that
Right.
I like working, in the same way that I
Clearly.
think you like working. And so there's some baggage we bring to this
Yeah. And when
conversation.
podcast says I want the yucky part, I'm like, yeah, that is also
Unsurprised.
surreal.
Yeah. So here's my concern. The thing that I've seen really work motivated people do is, when in doubt, they work more. And this is like me speaking from my own experience and like mistakes, honestly, because like when you have a multifaceted life, you will end up doing better on it. Like whatever your internal metrics are, you will do better in parts of it. And so like you might be really good at the work part and suck at, you know, relationships with your spouse, but you might have better relationships with your friend. But then, you know, maybe you're screwing up something with your kid or whatever. You're never going to be as good at like all of them. But since we're kind of these meat robots that lean into the stuff that feels good, what you end up doing is like when something is like not going as well as you want, you focus on the things that are working well. And so for people that are maybe work motivated like us, we neglect the other things even more, so they get into a worse spot so we can focus on the thing that we're kind of making progress on, which is work. And I've done this before and alienated people in my life for periods of time that I've had to dig myself out of holes with. But it's also really hard to do the opposite, which is to just like drop the thing that you identified with and were good at for a good chunk of time. So can you bring us any wisdom to this scenario?
So James said, you say something about people who only caring about what you do and not what you are, quote, male context.
Yeah. Okay. We'll talk more about that. I think that maybe we'll do a future one. Like I think in the play episode, there's a lot of things that we can explore that build up to that. So let's do that.
Yeah.
Thanks for sharing.
So I
that.
think like for me, like to answer your question, it's like what it seems like what helps me is to find the most amusing thing about every task. Which is so hard, right? It's like, you know, me filling out W9 is not amusing on any level. But I got to make a cast out of it. Like I replied you as a meta joke, and I was like, okay, that amused me for like 30 seconds. So I think it's something like that where I can possibly amuse myself out of the yucky parts.
Yeah.
a lot of times it is like clowning around. Of course, like, you still have to seriously not fill out the wrong numbers in the W9.
Yep.
But then it helps a lot to be able to make light of the situation. And I think that's where you and I actually were disagreeing even before we started the show. Is like you said, the intensity and passion is really important. Whereas I feel like, like for certain personalities like mine, I tend to twist that, as you know, and aim the flamethrower of intensity into my own face. And that usually ends up with, horrifying consequences. So it's like I almost need the levity of play in order to function at my highest performance. It's like I have to not care to care, which is like the weirdest thing.
Which in a way is kind of a way to hack yourself into a flow state, right?
Correct.
Like that's really what you're trying to do, is trick yourself into getting into the state where you're not distracted or weighed down by the details.
Correct. And that will lead us to our sponsor.
Oh, yeah. Let's go. Pet Hop.
Yeah, I'm using the wrong. Oh, there you go.
Got it.
Thank you so much. Yeah, so speaking of levity, our sponsor of today is Metacade.
We got a game.
Exactly. So Sohei is here representing. And so we they are so kind. They have sponsored our show where if you play this Pet Hop game, which is kind of like Frogger in the 90s, if anyone remembers that, you have a chance of winning 100 USDC that is split across the top 3 winners.
That's real American fake dollars.
Exactly. the real as we got in this economy. And so you have unlimited chances to play for free. And also Sohei is giving away 3 tickets for you to try. So here's the thing. You do have to, contribute to play, but then because you're a kind viewer of this show, you have 3 free chances to try out Pet Hop and see whether you can be one of the high scores. So I thought I'll demonstrate the game really quick because it was kind of hilarious how bad I am at it. So I'm trying
this
to
is the score to beat
without getting splattered.
Ooh, Kristen, you're overpowered. Kristen's hacking. No way.
I did practice. I think Sohei doesn't know.
Done. Absolutely wrecked. All right, all right, y'all.
I don't know whether you guys could hear the splatter that happened.
I did. I certainly did. All right, y'all.
So,
cast into OK Banger and flex how hard you beat Kristen, because I think that'll be pretty funny.
Exactly.
I'll play this up.
I tried to. That's 20 days of Warpcast rewards. Correct.
That's for real.
If you win the game. So yeah, so please check out Metacade. So they have a Metacade channel where Sohei's pinned the cast, and if you can, Sohei, you can drop the link. That would be helpful for everyone as well.
I think YouTube scrubs links from the chat, but we'll cast about it in our we'll cast about it in OK Banger afterwards.
Yep, exactly. Check it out. So thank you so much, Metacade, for sponsoring us. We hope that this can bring some levity into your life.
Yeah. Cast pictures of your score. We'll figure out something fun to do with that. Okay, so I really like this concept you brought up of how introducing levity, because there's a lot of things that you do that you want to do well, but it sucks. And when things suck, it's really, really easy to just get miserable and get what I like to use the technical term, get poopy faced about it. The amount of people that start feeling sorry for themselves as soon as something not fun happens is really, really high. And so I experienced this a lot in the Army, where you're already doing a thing that kind of sucks, which is carrying a heavy weight around, walking far distances, whatever. And then always it starts to rain or some other nasty thing where it's just hey, this bad experience just got worse. But the funnest times that I've had in the military context have also been those really, really nasty days where you look around and everybody is a drowned rat, and you just know that you get another 12 hours to do whatever you're trying to do. And so in those situations, I actually think that you can continue to execute on those things with a lot of what I would call violence and intensity, while maintaining a feeling of levity or joy or playfulness with it. that feels like it doesn't match, right? Like this is the kind of the thing that we were arguing about a little bit earlier, arguing,
Right.
debating, discovering the truth about.
Yeah. Well, we get into fist fights before the show.
That's true. Fisticuffs. That's, I mean,
Yeah.
it is okay banger. That is what we call it.
Exactly.
The reason why I think you can be intense but also playful, or like the way you do it is by directing the intensity towards the things that are in your locus of control. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Like,
It makes sense, but it's so hard. I don't like it when we give tips that are very impossible for everyone to execute.
this is it's total like it's possible in the sense of like interpreting your day in a more positive life through like affirmations and journaling and stuff is also possible, right? Like
Mhm.
you're not going to change the course of your life in a day, but the more that you can take a moment to be like, okay, let me just actually list out the things that are happening to me right now and how many of these I can actually affect, and just like I can't, like, I got a big ass pack on my back. I can't do anything with that. I know I
Mhm.
got to walk another 10 miles. I can't do anything about that. It's
Mhm.
raining now. I certainly can't do anything about that. But I can trip my buddy who's walking next to me because I know we got another 10 miles. And I think that'd be pretty funny to do because he's going to be so pissed because he's already mad. Like, like focusing on the part of that that I can tweak to make the day a little bit better, to find
Mhm.
the joy in filling out tax forms that you're talking about. Like that's the tangible thing that I think is
Mhm.
important about it.
Yeah, and here's the thing, right? Like, video games are so good at managing this, right?
Yeah.
It's like, oh, and then also, yes, so he says, I can finally say Asino okay banger. We should
Let's
make
go.
those
Welcome to the
Asino
club.
TV logo. Our
Ooh,
logo
that's a
already
good
looks
one.
kind of like that.
Writing that down.
Right? Oh my gosh. Um, yeah, and in fact, it
Video
says
games.
Medicaid is actually cool, reminds me of early Flash game sites. Exactly.
Cool
And you
Math
can
Games on Farcaster. You heard it here first.
exactly, and they integrate it into existing communities so that there's many ways to play.
Shout out Lamb Chop. I just remembered we had a conversation and she brought up Cool Math Games. Master Chief, I was an 11 Alpha. I was an infantry officer. Kristen, how do you find more playful, or how do you insert more playfulness into your life?
Uh so I wanted to bring up video games because I think you had sent this link to me a long time ago by this game designer who talks about how to make picking up sticks rewarding,
Yes. I'm
right?
gonna pull that up real quick. Yeah.
Right. So like taking up filling a tax form is really no different from me grinding in Animal Crossing, catching a bajillion butterflies or whatever. Like it's exactly the same thing, but yet I find that so rewarding. So I think there is something here where if we can it was supposed to trend in the 2000s, you remember, like gamify your life. Like this was a
Yeah, yeah.
thing that didn't really take off, but then it didn't really work all that well because I think part of our minds like knows when it's trying to be tricked in that way. But if we are sincere about it, I think there is something where you can self-design your life to be like a game you enjoy playing.
You mean like having little gems that you give
Right,
yourself when
right,
you accomplish
exactly.
basic tasks? Like, I mean, it's stupid, but it does work. And so the video game thing's really interesting because like I've downloaded I think probably 5 or so apps that have allowed me to gamify parts of my life. You know, some have
Mhm,
been super intense about like leveling up and experience points and whatever.
mhm,
But like the ones that kind of worked a little bit better just had a really nice core loop of like, hey, list the things that you want to do. And then as you do them, you have some sort of overarching sense of progression, but you also have like a micro dopamine feedback loop. And that's like all games are really, is like an inner loop and an outer loop towards like a longer term progression. Easy to say, hard to do. And
mhm.
like, I think the death, not the death knell, but like the thing that makes all that stuff sticky is all of our lives are not going to map perfectly into video games because like frankly video games can just make all of it fun if they're good at it, and there's a lot of things in life that just inherently aren't going to be fun. So
So there's so much interesting stuff going on in the chat right now that I want to pull
oh
them
yeah,
all
yeah,
up.
yeah, we got people hyped.
Yeah.
This is great.
Yeah, yeah. So what is a chuck?
Uh, I'm assuming either a Joe or this might be slang for like an engineer or a maintenance person, but there's so much military slang, especially cross service. So dox yourself more if you're comfortable. Because like I love talking military stuff.
Yeah.
Um,
Sam says, I love living my life like an NPC. That's how I feel about making money. My life is just a game. Oh yeah, I see that Lamb Chop agrees here.
Lamp's great.
I don't know. I feel like Sam, you're the opposite of NPC. You're a little bit like main character. So I do not
Sam,
like that characterization
Sam
at
is
all.
super main character energy. They're just
Yeah,
really,
yeah,
really
yeah.
good. But okay, so and like thinking of yourself as an NPC though, I think is kind of like a combination of rhetorical devices to basically be a Buddhist monk. Does that make sense?
I can
Disagree with that.
sort of see that in that you don't take
Oh,
things so personally, but somehow I don't think we're talking about exactly the same thing. But yeah,
Mass.
Master Chief's reply,
He was a
huh?
mortarman. That's what he was. 11 Charlie is 11 Chuck. Um, the the was a he shot things into the distance. I love my mortarman. What were we talking about? I don't know. I'm taking risks here today, Kristen. I don't think
We're all
everybody's
main.
a main character in their own life.
You don't? Oh,
I
that's
don't.
controversial.
I mean, I think they can be. I think a lot of people don't choose to be.
Hmm.
Barcook, yeah, you can change the main character. Just
Yeah.
the character select screen takes multiple years to make happen.
Right. So Dahlia brings up a good point of like, time to log in and quest. So yeah, I sometimes I play around with the quest framing because again, it's like healthier and less yucky than like
Yep.
task. Because that just feels like, like grinding things out. But here's the thing, like there's so many of these like apps that are like, we can help you design your task list to pick an RPG, but they never really work, I don't think.
Yeah.
Well, they appeal to a very narrow band of people who can make it work, and sadly, that's not me. Because if it was me, I'll be so happy.
Yeah. Like the best tasks for that kind of stuff are the repeatable things that are part of the mechanisms of making your life work.
Mm-hmm.
Doing dishes, exercising, maybe reading and enrichment, depending on how you do that. So like it's hard to incorporate the complex spontaneity of I think life broadening experiences, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because like, yeah, you can put travel to 10 countries on your quest log, but that's not gonna like take into account the experiences you have if you're visiting Spain or something like that.
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah, and Lamb Chop says that she agrees some people don't want to be the main character.
And that's fine.
Mm-hmm.
This isn't like a prescriptive judgment. It's just observing how people interact with the world around them sometimes.
Mm-hmm.
All right, Kristen, I kind of have a little bit more. I have a more direct question about like play. Like we've used the word play a lot
Mm-hmm.
today. What does it actually mean, like to you, to play in the context of living your life? Because like we know babies play with like toys. We know we play video games, but like as a person doing things, what does play mean?
In theory, I think it ties into the whole infinite games mindset,
Okay.
right? Like it's like in theory, again, not saying I'm a practitioner of all of this because I
Yep.
catch myself all the time of doing the opposite. It's like, how can you see life as something to be enjoyed and not like another task to check off? How can you have an abundance space mindset that allows you to see life as games that are non-competitive? I think that is
Okay.
probably another controversial point, right?
Yeah.
Because that's it doesn't really play out that way as we have observed.
Oh,
And I think for me, yeah, it's like there is some somatic state, some bodily feeling that's associated with play that's really, really pleasant. That I feel like is the truer state of how we can be if we are, a little bit more enlightened. And that I think people who are a little bit more enlightened in this way, like, are playing in a sense.
what's the feeling of play? Like if you had to sum up emotions to equal play, what is that?
Relaxation.
Oh, interesting. I view that
Yeah.
as like
It's the
What are the
opposite of what you said.
Yeah, like what are the inputs to play?
Um, I think it's perception because I think like theoretically anything can be play, right? It's sort of like
Mhm.
how like kids can play with a stick, that kind of thing. But then doing it as an adult, like how can you design or like perceive things in a way in which things you have to get done becomes play. And it's
Okay.
sort of like how as kids, like you almost like role play adult jobs, right?
Yeah.
And like so play is practice as a child, but then like as an adult, what is that childhood delight that has been lost?
That's so interesting.
Yeah, and of course, like P Vista brings up a good point, which is like
I was
play
about
is
to pop that
abused.
up. Chris and I are racing to show this one because
Yeah,
it's a great
when
comment.
I flick it back and forth because we're both pressing. Just gotta show that, gotta show that.
Like play is abused by companies like Duolingo with their gamification. I view the concept of gamification as a little bit of a misnomer. Like I think it's abusing dopamine loops
Mm.
to engineer behavior. And like that isn't to me the concept of play. Like you are doing a thing actively, yes, but like the fact that it makes you do something and it like consistently makes you do it doesn't make it play necessarily. I think often it turns it into a compulsion. And I think like compulsion is one of those things that isn't necessarily the opposite of play, but it's certainly not the same thing. So I'm gonna kind of push on some of the stuff that you said because, like I said earlier before this episode, I think play is intimately tied up with the concept of exploration. Like when you are exploring something,
Mm-hmm.
you're trying to figure out like what the shape of the thing is. You're trying to figure out like the depth, how far left to right it can go. And this is like not necessarily physical space, but it's like there's a new
Oh,
it's a new thing that I have that I am looking at, and there's an unknown quality to it. In the case of a
that's
child
beautiful.
playing, I appreciate that. The like the exploration to me is the thing that is giving me permission to not ascribe some sort of condition to the action that I'm doing. And so if I'm in the state of exploration, of discovery, of trying to build a model of what I see in my brain and my understanding of the universe, then I'm freed from the like confines of, oh, I have to do this because I need to make another dollar. Or, oh, I have to do this because I need to be better or make progress or achieve a certain thing. And so like that's kind of how I think about the concept of play and bringing it to what I'm doing every day. I don't think you can live in that state forever though, because we
Yeah,
do
I was
gotta.
like gonna say, how do you do that?
We gotta. Oh, this is a good Gwyn curious hermitism. Play is about detachment from outcomes. I think I'm going to
Oh,
disagree with that a little bit.
oh,
I think it's maybe a so I reflexively disagree with stuff. So take my disagreements with like a big old chunk of salt. Partially because it's fun to, and partially because it just makes me it's think about stuff more.
mm-hmm.
But play isn't outcomeless because you can play a game and there are winners and losers. And I think you can authentically like play a game of pickup soccer, like pickup football. Excuse me, Europeans in the chat. But I think it's detachment from. I don't have a good word for it, but it's not outcomes because outcomes happen in play. Like I played Halo 2 online, like ranked matches for hours, and I would consider a lot of that as like a flow state of playing things. But there were outcomes, there were consequences. But what is that? What do you think? What is that?
Well, I really love how you're tying play with explore. It gives me the image of like Star Trek, um, where boldly go where no man has gone before kind of vibes. Like the more Picard and less what's the other guy? Oh my
Spock?
gosh. No. The other captain. Oh my gosh.
I don't know. I'm not a big Trekkie to be
Well,
completely
there's
honest.
no Ivy in the chat today to save us from
For
butchering
real.
this. Yeah. yeah, like there is the sake of exploration itself is the good quality, right? And that I can see helps at least brings the attention away from outcomes. But I think here's the trick, right? Is that like some people like us, like me, like we are our dopamine release is dependent on outcomes matching. And therefore
Hmm.
it's really insidious because it's sometimes it's not even about based on success. It's almost like, oh, if I predict that I'm going to screw this up and I do screw this up, then there is dopamine release. Like so it's a
Ooh.
prediction algorithm that's matched, and that's really like, dangerous. Like you can see super unhealthy over time.
That makes
Whereas
sense why variable reward mechanisms are so addicting.
exactly, which is very prominent and used in all sorts of ways, right? And whereas if we are able to have, dopamine release slash the happiness associated with play and exploration, I bet there's like some more complexity. Of course, like, again, dopamine release is a shorthand for a complexity of neurotransmitter changes that's happening and
Yep.
synaptic changes. But then if we can like increase the complexity of happiness within ourselves
Uh-huh.
through what you said, that is probably a healthier long-term outcome. But to make this switch, I think is really tricky, right? Because like
Yeah.
society and it's like, let's undo 30 years of training in this one way.
Okay, so many thoughts on this. First one, Tori, I think nailed it. It's Captain Kirk.
Oh my gosh, yes. I was like,
Second,
William Shatner?
second, Tori also nailed it. I think with what I was trying to describe. Like you have outcomes, you have consequences, but it's without
Mhm,
assigning some sort of moral value to the outcome.
mhm,
The journey is the goal kind of energy.
mhm.
Um, it's really interesting when you start bringing in some more game design. Spoiler alert: I'm going to drop the blog afterwards, but the blog is Lost Garden, that had the value chain stick one you referenced earlier.
Oh,
Um,
yes.
in game design, there's a couple different types of people that are like archetypes of game players.
Mhm.
There are I'm gonna abuse this and like get it wrong, but it'll be directionally right. The first kind is kind of what we were talking about, where people are just like they get dopamine from exploring.
Mm.
There's people also that get dopamine from achieving. And
Mhm.
so like, it's finishing the main quest or 100%ing the game. Like they want to like be good at the thing. Uh there's people that get dopamine from mastery. And like a lot of those kinds of people play more skill-based games, or there's like quick time events, things like that. And then there's other people who get dopamine from games by just ruining other people's times.
Oh.
And I am not ashamed to say that I had a period of being like a pretty aggressive video game troll when I was younger, mostly with my friends. Because so
Trolling
one
friends is fun. I mean,
oh no, we were teaming
most of
up
my
against the
existence on
world.
Farcaster.
There was the quick anecdote. So Halo 1 didn't have online on the Xbox or Xbox 360, but it did have online on the computer. And so what my friends and I would do, because it was like rudimentary online, like FPS shooter play, first person shooter play, I just said. But we got on and we would just team kill a lot of our
Mhm.
team, because in some games that wasn't turned off. But as soon as we would do that, we would pretend to be colorblind in the chat. And so we'd be like, "I'm so sorry, I can't tell the difference between red and green." And like it was so screwed up. But it was really, really funny. The amount of joy we got out of just reenacting this one bit over and over again, like I cannot overstate how much fun that was.
So we've gone from what petty crime youth Cameron to like Halo griefer
Yes.
Cameron.
Yeah, so yeah, I think you can so the griefing was the start of the arc. Actually being kind of like an internet troll was probably the start, evolved into online griefing, evolved into, some light shoplifting kind of stuff. And then, I'm here. Welcome everyone.
Oh, the Woofy says, I don't remember the last stream Cam didn't mention Halo.
But good data point. Oh, that maybe
Right.
the algorithm will start targeting other washed up people like me.
Mhm. Yeah, so like to bring it back, right? Like as Vista brought it out, it's like if other companies or other entities use these loops against you, then it feels super yucky. If you're
Yes.
doing it consensually, like like Sam mentioning, like learning Spanish, and that's fine. But then,
Yep.
like, how can we like knowing that exploration and all these mechanisms are used? How do we implement that when we're looking at our yucky to-do lists?
So really tangibly, I sometimes schedule blocks to play. Like
Oh.
like I have a bunch of execution oriented stuff to do. And like, sometimes you just need to sit down and nug and do the thing, fill out a bunch of forms or whatever. But I like feel my soul getting crushed if I don't have some relatively open space to like as a developer explore a new kind of like set of developer tools, or to like write a code project that I'm not trying to do anything that isn't explicitly achieving my goal. Like
Mm-hmm.
could be exploring far. Actually, I've been trying to figure out how I'm going to word this cast. I'll just say it on OK Banger.
Mm-hmm.
It's a pretty useful model for me to think of my profile on Farcaster and other social platforms as a variable reward game for everybody interacting with me. Does that make any
Ooh.
sense?
Yeah, and then Gwen mentioned being a NPC quest giver. So
Yeah, that's fun. Like for me, replying to people is an opportunity to give them a little bit of like joy or a nugget of value, or something that I think is going to make their online experience better. And
Mhm.
that game of trying to come up with the like quip reply like emoji or whatever, that makes it more fun to me to do kind of the grind of interacting with people online sometimes.
Mhm. Mhm. I love that. Like, how many hours per day do you schedule for exploring? I'm gonna add this to my schedule now.
I think I probably don't do it more than an hour a day, and I don't do it every day because I'm kind
Mm.
of in a lock-in era, right? Because I got stuff that I need to do.
Mhm.
When I didn't have as many when I didn't have as many, like, responsibilities, I would just basically spend all my time doing that. I have an essay called Explore versus Exploit, which is like a useful mental model, I think, for
Mhm.
people that like to get stuff done. I think we've talked about it before.
Yeah,
But
my friend wrote a similar essay as well.
oh,
Bees
cool.
do that.
Okay, say more.
When they're looking for a honey, like they go through modes of exploring, like for new places to find the honey versus exploiting when they tell their buddies that hey, this is where the honey is. And they have different dances for the explore versus exploiting modes.
Got it. Okay. Yeah, I mean, that taking bees and applying them to humans,
Mm-hmm.
pretty much everything interesting that was ever discovered is like part of this explore exploit loop. And
Mm-hmm.
so like I got kind of the inspo for my paper from something that I felt myself and then found replicated in some research. But it's like geniuses at their craft, artists, scientists, whatever, their explore periods where they're not trying to tangibly achieve anything, but they're just
Mm-hmm.
doing they're playing for the love of the game that they play. That's what gives them the foundation to be able to make the like cross connections needed to be like,
Mm-hmm.
oh, this is a really insightful thing that I only know because I studied bees, material science, and swimming. Like, you know what I mean? That make
100%. Yeah, that's what most of the discoveries made in my old lab was based on us screwing around.
okay. Is there a
Like
story in there?
yeah, so like, we were trying to understand the mechanisms of how oligodendrocytes, which is sort of like the white matter of the brain, like the insulation around the wire, which is like the neurons of your brain, like how they
Okay.
work. And we would do like super wacky stuff like I'm gonna buy magic string from the magician's shop because I can pull it really, really thin, and then I can pretend that that's the neuron and put the cells on it and see what they will wrap and what's the minimum diameter. Or like, I'm gonna
What?
dig up earthworms. We had an earthworm digging up face. Like just like super wacky stuff that makes absolutely no sense. But
Yes.
like in the end, it's these weird little experimentations that led to our discovery of how these, cells actually interact with each other. Like, but the
How do
thing is,
they
at
interact
least
with each
that,
other?
like magic string and earthworms never made it into the paper. You know, we wouldn't tell you about that because it's like way too distracting and random. But I think like every paper that seems really tidy, like there's lots of weird ass stuff that we all did in the background to lead us to these fundamental discoveries. And it's really
I
hard. Like, and I always feel bad because I'm like, oh, if only people know that like most of it was 99% was dicking around, and the 1% is the tidied up part.
I wonder how much or how different the world would feel if we showed all the dicking around.
Right.
Like I think
And I think that's
one
my issue with Love Creator like stuff that you see. It's the tidied up stuff. It's not us talking about random things.
got it. So okay, banger is us dicking around and showing it.
Correct. Yeah, which I think is more representative.
I think so too. And it's there's a really good micro essay that we talked about a couple episodes ago about The Room. Do you remember that one?
Oh, remind me again?
The joke is that everybody is just trying to get back to the room that they used
Oh,
to
the
be
room
in,
where it
where they were
happened.
working with other people that were like all
Mhm.
really excited about the thing that they're working on. Like
Yeah.
people's entire careers are oriented around making another room that they love as much as the one they used to be in.
Mhm.
I think the room is where people dick around, and the room is where people fuck around and find out.
Mhm.
Ay, ay, ay. Play is the root of that, right? So if we trace that back, really good stuff comes from screwing around. Screwing around is really the output of play. If you don't put play into your process, you're probably not doing nearly as well as you think you are by just like grinding and nugging the whole time. Is that a fair summary of the stuff we've been talking about?
Yeah, I feel like you might have solved some of my doom loops.
Pack it up. We're done. Kristen
Yeah.
is healed.
Yes, I am. Oh, yeah, I feel like yeah, let's all schedule an hour of dicking around and then see what happens.
The
FAFO time.
the trick is to not have your phone within arm's reach when you're doing that, because it's so easy. Like it's always easier to doom scroll than it is to authentically play.
Mhm.
Always. Because doom scroll does the work for you.
Yeah. I also want to pull this up. So Tori's talking about how to summon worms by rubbing two sticks together, making sure one stick's touching the dirt. This is something I want to try. Okay, so I know what we're talking about is the worm summoning trick. And yeah, I was gonna try it because we do go fishing a lot, and I want to find my own bait.
You want to find your own bait.
Yes, that's one of the playful things we do in our household is the designing closed ecosystems where can you like you start from nothing and be able to like catch dinner like so I
Why
know
is that fun for you?
it's like it's almost like Animal Crossing / game of self-sufficiency of
Uh-huh.
like how far can you push your skills in a practical way. So like can you take like a sabiki rig with like nothing on it and then like catch a jack smell and then use a jack smell to catch a bigger fish and then like use the guts of that fish and put it into a crab snare and then get a crab for the season.
Where would you
These are
bucket
things to think
yourself?
about when I'm not working, by the way.
Okay, so where would you bucket yourself in terms of the types of game players?
I want to say that the games I got really sucked into tended to be these like collecting farming games,
Mhm.
where it is like homesteading but made cute and like absolutely not tied to the reality of actually doing it.
Hmm. That's so interesting. Have you ever 100%ed a game?
I don't think so. I'm not a complete. Surprisingly, I'm not a completionist.
So you're not a completionist, but you like collecting.
Yes, or like The Sims, which
Okay,
is a very typical, very woman-coded game, I feel like, of
for sure.
like yeah, like decorating, like those kind of games I really liked. I mean, I
Hmm.
played like Super Mario 2 until my Game Boy was permanently depressed on the right button. Like
Yeah.
I have done that before, like the
Yeah.
more traditional games, but like the ones I remember fondly are these like, you know, cohesion type games, I think.
Hmm. I'm gonna think about that because, like, I think that says something. I just don't know what the message is.
I think it's interesting because these games don't have a competitive element. Like The Sims is like you're
Well, so my question is I agree. So first of all, I agree that they don't have a competitive element. But do you stop playing it when you have made it in the game, right? Like when you've maxed out a career path or when you have the big farm with all of the sprinklers. Like, do you stop playing the game after that?
I think I start a new one. Yeah, of like, 'cause,
Yeah, okay.
you cannot like infinite. Maybe some people can like infinitely add to it, but then there was
Kristen,
something about the beginning part that's really fun.
what it,
Again, the like maybe this is the creator journey replicated, but like it's the struggle part in the beginning of like starting out as a Spartan Sims. If you don't use cheat codes, which sometimes I do, but as a separate kind of game,
yeah.
you start out at Sims and you start out with nothing. Like there was just a 0 to 1 thing I think I'm replicating.
I mean,
I sadly find fun even though I struggle most of the time.
I feel like you might not be like addicted is the wrong word, but like
Mhm.
that's the one that comes to mind is like the process of nothing to existing is the thing that
Yeah.
you might feel is the most important,
Mhm.
or it might be the thing that you feel you don't nail in real life as much as you'd like. So it's nice to
Mhm.
master that in a
Right.
sandbox.
Exactly.
Interesting. I have no credentials in terms of people analysis. I just was a loner weirdo that didn't understand how people thought. So I think about this stuff a lot.
Mhm. I feel
That
like our chat has gone off the rails, by the way.
good. That's a successful stream. Let's I mean it's DeWolfie taking over. Let's pop this and get into talking about next week. What